Hello, everybody. Justin Stivers. I hope you guys are doing well, staying safe, staying healthy, and all that. Thank you guys for tuning in for the Stivers Show. Very excited about today's guest, Jason Kairalla, shareholder at the law firm of Carlton Fields, current president of the University of Miami Law Association Alumni Group. And Jason, thanks for being on today, man.
It's my pleasure. Thanks very much for having me.
So I've got to know Jason through the university, through the Alumni Association, and I mean, just smart guy, doing a lot of really cool things and doing a lot of great things with the association, but also at Carlton Fields. And so, a couple weeks ago, I think I kind of lost track of time with everything going on, but we got together and chatted, and we were talking about just, our law firms are very different. He's obviously, Carlton Fields. Excuse me, big law firm. I have a small law firm, but we're both kind of passionate about two things, really, about the Alumni Association and then about tech and how companies, how law firms are using tech in their law firm. So I thought, it's timely to speak about that because a lot of law firms and businesses are having to adapt and find ways to use technology during this whole coronavirus situation. So we'll talk a little bit about those things, and I know we want to spend some time talking about the Alumni Association and UM Law in general, because right now is a difficult time for students getting ready to graduate, job market and all that. So we're gonna touch on that as well. But to get started, where I always like to start with the guest is Jason. Who are you and what do you do?
I am a proud triple cane. I did a Bachelor in Business Administration as well as an MBA and a JD at the U. I have been a career litigator, first with the law firm of Jordan Burt, which was a financial services class action and regulatory boutique, and we merged about 6 years ago with Carlton Fields, and I've happily been a member of the Carlton Fields family ever since. My practice is primarily complex federal court cases, both trials and appeals. I represent a lot of insurance and annuity providers in class actions and other significant cases. Also, I do some constitutional First Amendment work, environmental litigation, and some municipal litigation and IP. What kind of draws it all together is it's generally complicated and high stakes. Beyond that, I have a passion for court procedure and practice, oddly, and the intersection between law and technology and business. And so I spend a lot of my time, in addition to practicing, exploring ways in which we can help to deliver creative and innovative solutions for our clients, utilizing technology. And that has been increasingly a larger part of my practice, one that I find interesting. You had mentioned I'm currently the president of the Law Alumni Association at the University of Miami. I think we're doing great work there. I know a lot of your viewers are alums and fans of the University of Miami, and we would encourage all of them to get involved with the Law Alumni Association. Even if you haven't been back in a while, now is a good time. There's definitely things to do and opportunities to get involved. And I would encourage folks to check out, if you go to law.miami.edu, you can click on the alumni tab, or just email alumni@law.miami.edu and say, here's who I am and here's how I can help.
Okay. Like I said, very, very smart guy, doing a lot of cool stuff. So I want to, before we, kind of dive into the alumni stuff, I did want to talk a little, I think when we were speaking a couple weeks ago, we were talking about how your firm had really succeeded in pivoting with all this pretty quickly, right? And so I thought that was kind of neat to hear because, I know a lot of these large firms, I mean, you've got huge staff, you've got, just the logistics of doing it, but you guys were really, from what you shared with me, really able to do it pretty seamlessly. And I know you're chairing the firm's tech innovation group. as well. And so maybe talk a little bit about, I guess, how the firm was able to, adapt to these circumstances. And then if you want to share a little bit about what the innovation group, tech innovation group's doing.
Yeah, I, I think the firm's transition to this work from home environment was beyond all expectations, and I can't take the credit for that. We have just an amazing team from our chief technology officer and our chief operating officer on down. We've run tons of disaster recovery scenarios because we have offices in Florida that involve significant natural disasters. What we had never really game planned for was what happened if the equivalent of a natural disaster hit all 11 of our offices from New York to Los Angeles at the same time, and change the way that we had to practice for weeks, if not months, and everything held, and we were able to transition the majority of our workforce to work from home, open up the remote access and issue laptops when necessary to staff, and it was seamless. And we were ready, but you never know, when it actually moves forward. And we found there's a lot of challenges associated with this new environment, but I like to focus on the opportunities that it creates. We are in some ways connecting more intimately now because of these video technologies than even if we were on opposite sides of a courtroom or across a large boardroom table or something like that. Like, when I'm talking to a client this way, I'm very close to them,
Yeah.
I remember we put on a CLE event with a federal judge last year as part of the Florida Bar's Federal Court Practice Committee. And it took 2 or 3 technology sessions with court staff to get the camera right and to get through the firewall and to deal with all of those issues of getting the video out of the courthouse. We're setting up to do another event featuring 3 federal judges in 3 district courthouses throughout Florida, which is Monday, by the way, and I'll forward you information for that. But it took us about 5 minutes to get everybody online, get the cameras positioned right, and get ready to go. We've had one prep session, and we're like, this, we'll go live, and this will be great. And so this is a change. This is a paradigm. Folks like you and me have been in this space for a while and getting ready for the world to take this transition. But then we were sitting and listening to crickets while the mainstream wasn't dabbling in this. And I'm proud of my firm because, we were waist deep in the shallow end when I think other people were not anywhere. But now, we're all up to our necks in it. And I think we're succeeding, individually as law firms, as organizations, and, as a bar and bench as a whole in the way that we're adapting to meet the needs of the community. So I think I'm very excited about that. I'm proud of my firm and how it's responded to that. I'm proud of the University of Miami School of Law and the way that they've been able to adapt to online education. I've got 4 kids in the other room that are attending school at various levels right now on Zoom at the same time we are, and everything seems to be holding. I think that's great.
Yeah, it's really, it is crazy that though, there's a lot of sadness going, obviously people passing away, losing jobs and all of that, but to some extent, a lot of companies, a lot of people really haven't missed a beat in doing all of this. And talking about the university, I've got a law clerk and she's taking all of her classes online, and we're holding later this afternoon one of our table 8 sessions with Judge Benavides. And normally, we do it at a restaurant, and we're just doing it, via Zoom. And so I think a lot of, this, I don't know, people keep saying the new norm. Do you think a lot of this is going to stick, or do you think once the floodgates open, people are going to be scrambling to get back to, the way it was, and we'll kind of forget about the Zoom and all of that?
I think it's never going to be completely the same again. And it's not because of the pandemic, but it was just spurred by the pandemic. I listen to very experienced practitioners say, hey, there's just no substitute for being in the room, right? To taking the temperature of the judge, to staring down the witness, to things like that. And we've realized that, no, it's not the same if you have to do this virtually, but it's all a matter of, it's all relative.
Yeah.
You have to deal with the fact that if this is a document custodian, right, and they're important, but they're not really important, or this is the mid-level manager, but not the department head, right? I can fly to Secaucus and take that guy's deposition, right? And it may be incrementally better than if I had done it in an online environment. But I'll tell you what happened. The client paid to fly me out to Secaucus, right? I arrived the night before because it started in the morning and you don't want to have to deal with delayed flights or something like that. Like when you add up the cost relative to the incremental benefit, it turns out that there are a number of circumstances where face-to-face will continue to be the norm and be necessary. But I think we have now opened our eyes to a universe where there's a lot of times when it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
And I think clients are going to start saying more and more, you're going to need to justify for me why, and get sign off in writing that you're flying to Secaucus, and I don't mean to, be rough on Secaucus, but just, that's what's going to change, right? Judges are going to look at, like, I clerked with Judge Huck on the Southern District of Florida, and I think he's wonderful. And he loves to have hearings. He loves to be there and interact with the lawyers, but he understands, as we all do, that at the end of the day, we have clients and those clients are paying bills. So when it's appropriate for purposes of meeting the spirit of Rule 1 and being, giving efficient access to justice, he has telephonic hearings because he knows and understands that if he's got to fly all those lawyers in, he may get the right answers right away and the hearing takes 5 minutes, or he may not get the answers he wants, and it goes on for hours. But sometimes it's hard to tell. And having the out-of-town counsel especially travel in, so he has these telephonic hearings. He hates them.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for him. they could be better.
He's not watching.
Right? Because there are things you can do in a live hearing as a judge. Give the party a look and they stop talking, or just raise your hand a little bit, or just a look that you have in your eye. You can't replicate that over the phone. It's just not possible. But you can over video. And so, again, it's not as good as being live and in person, but maybe it's 80% of the experience at a significant cost savings. We have a client, in-house counsel, who's done dozens of online mediations now. And the feedback we've received from her is pretty much the same. I mean, not the same experience, but, she hasn't seen a marked decline in the results as a result of having it be online. And, so many requirements are for the client to be live and in person. So she finds herself flying from Tampa all over the country to participate in these mediation sessions. Well, she doesn't have to do that anymore because she can just turn her camera on and they're in business. And as you know, so much of mediation is, you strategize for a little while and then you sit in a room waiting for the other side to figure out what their position is going to be. There's productive things we could be doing during that time. And maybe video conferencing will allow us to do that. So I think the cost savings, I think some of the, like I said, intimacy that can be created by sort of this close camera experience, that's going to, I think, mitigate some of what you lose. And then as we get better with the technology, I think we can actually reach out and find opportunities to have even better interaction and engagement by utilizing, some of the advanced tools with these technologies, getting better lighting, getting better cameras, things like that, that really, I think, is going to close the gap significantly.
Yeah, and I think those are all great points. And what I like to hear is that it's coming from you, from someone who's at a big law firm, because I think that, even in my space of maybe solo small law firms, they're
Right.
resistant to it because I've heard those same arguments. Well, it's not the same. Okay, well, no, it's not the same, but you
Right.
can almost replicate it, and in pros versus cons, and to hear that from someone who's at a very large law firm and they're doing it and they're thriving and they're doing well with it, I think, that is kind of, telling of what might come, later down the road. Um,
Right.
Shifting a little bit though, to talk about the U, so that's another large institution that, education, primarily in person course, classes, face to face. I mean, that had changed a little bit. You had, I think, online courses has been kind of changing and coming, down the pike for a little while now. But I think, we both agree that you've done a great job and the law school's done a great job at kind of, adapting at this, and Dean Verona has really stepped in and led very well with all this. I'd just be curious, kind of what are your thoughts on all of that?
Um, I think it's such an amazing challenge. Again, like Carlton Fields, I think the University of Miami School of Law was ahead of the curve from a technology standpoint. We have an amazing international LLM program, lots of international programs, really. And we were ahead of a lot of law schools with respect to digital transformation. We had um, video conference setups in the major classrooms, and people are able to participate remotely in classes. And um, during summer abroads and things like that, we have other circumstances where we continue to provide education while the students are somewhere else. But transitioning that on a dime to all faculty
Yeah,
teaching remotely and all students learning remotely was, and only having 2 weeks to do it, they did an amazing job.
yeah,
And it's the same thing. Uh, Dean Lilly Levy, who's the vice dean at the law school in charge of intellectual life, um, was quick to correct me when I suggested that, this was a very significant boost in what we were doing. The law school is doing what it's always been capable of, but at a scale that's unprecedented. It's the same thing. They went from waist deep to up to their necks,
yeah,
and everything is holding. And the students have been very responsive to the experience, and there's been mixed reviews. A lot of people prefer the live interaction in person, but there are a lot of people who have adapted very well to this online environment. Um, my heart goes out to our law students, particularly our recent graduates. I think this is a very challenging time to be dealing with these circumstances. To help out with that, the faculty and the University of Miami Law Alumni Association and our Parents and Partners Committee has reached out to create a fund, sort of an emergency fund for students. It's raised nearly $50,000, and most of that money has been dispersed. It's things you wouldn't even think about. We raised $3,000 for printing costs associated with the students preparing for finals, and they're in the middle of finals right now.
yeah.
When you think about it, you have these class notes and these outlines and things like that. It's
A lot of paper.
potentially hundreds of pages,
Yeah,
and um, you know, if millennials or Gen Z have printers at all, they're not the ones that are going to be handling this high capacity. So we started an account at a FedEx office locations, and the students could just go in and print. And that was, I think, a really positive experience. Our faculty is reaching out and saying, "Hey, this is an opportunity to spread knowledge." And so the law school has had a series of 3 COVID webinars that are talking about issues presented in faculty members' core subject matter expertise areas as it relates to COVID-19. And the reception has been amazing. The first one, I think they gave about 5 days notice, maybe 4 days notice of the event because they really wanted to be on top of it. 525 people registered. So, I think they're doing a great job. I think that this is a time for leadership, and the law school and Dean Verona and his executive group are really showing the kind of leadership. And I think we're going to weather through this. We're hopeful that classes are going to begin live and in person in September, not the way that you remember them necessarily, more social distancing and taking the appropriate precautions to protect the students, but there really has been a demand for trying to get back to campus because it's more than just classroom learning. There's so much to the experience, and the university as a whole is planning for that. The Florida government is planning for that, and the law school is engaged in planning for that. So
yeah, I think
I look forward to seeing how it all works out.
I think the one good thing about virtual is if you get called out in class, it's easy to it's easy to duck if they call you and you hadn't read for that day. That's the only maybe one pro. But I agree. I think they've done an amazing job, and just really from the first couple days of being able to scramble and put webinars together, and Georgie and everyone on the team has really, I think, done a phenomenal job. I know we're running out of time here, but I know there's a lot of events coming up. I don't know if you want to plug any events coming up or best way for people to get involved, because I know, like you said, that now's a time where a lot of the recent grads and probably a time for other Canes to step up. So I'll let you plug away and see how people can get involved.
Absolutely, and I'll forward you links to go along with this. But there's definitely an opportunity to contribute time, talent, and treasure to the law school. These emergency relief funds, right now the dean is setting up a program that will help to employ students who are displaced from summer programs with internships. They don't pay a great deal of money, but research assistance opportunities, things like that, so that they can have the experience. And so we're going to be circulating some information about that you can check out. Mentoring is incredibly important, and the need really exists. Reach out to Marcy Cox at the Career Services Office at the law school, or just email alumni@law.miami.edu and say, I'd like to get involved. And we're always looking for jobs for our students and for our recent graduates. There's more creativity happening now in that space than there was before. So you may be able to take on even unpaid internships or, short-term sort of lower pay work to get the students experience with the potential for it to grow into something more as we return to some new normal. In addition to that, the law school is reaching out, the Alumni Association, region by region, and connecting with our Canes. This is another example of an opportunity, right? We had planned for next year to travel, and we still may, to a number of different cities for purposes of continuing to gather sort of regional groupings of our alums so that we can build those networks and have better professional outcomes as a result. But we were able to accelerate that because now we can go to a different town every day, or maybe even multiple towns per day. And so the dean and a member of the faculty and some of the Law Alumni Association officers are going to be sort of dancing around the country virtually. And so we'll certainly get notice out there when we're in your neck of the woods. The other thing, in addition to everything else I'm up to, I'm chairing right now the Federal Court Practice Committee of the Florida Bar. And we're putting on a webinar series leading up to our annual Federal Judicial Roundtable that will feature an interaction between members of the federal bench and the bar about the COVID realities and social distancing and working from home, and how the courts are responding and how practitioners are responding. This opportunity came to us because Judge Tom Barber in the Middle District of Florida reached out to one of our members and said, I'd like to hear from the bar, and I think they would like to hear from us, so see what you can do. And then we got on this prep call with a few judges, Judge Roy Altman here in the Southern District of Florida, Judge Barber, and then Judge Alan Windsor in the Northern District of Florida. And on the call, which was Friday, they were like, how about we do this in a week? What do you think? So, because as you know, there's no logistics to doing that. So we're having a live CLE event with somewhere, we expect around 300 registrants or more. Is going to be Monday, May the 4th, which is in half a week. So that's going to be very exciting. One of the great things about working within the Florida Bar is that CLE credit approval for that was easily fast-tracked. So it's a great event. It's going to be completely free, and it's 1.5 credits, including ethics credits, including professionalism credits, including technology credits. So I'll forward the information about that to you. You can get it out on social media. I know this won't air before that happens, but there will be another one in a couple of weeks, and probably another one in a couple of weeks after that. So
so you're busy.
Yeah, but it's been very, very rewarding. It all comes back to this, right? We're in the client service business. That's what this is about. It's not about us. It's not about how well we're doing as a law firm. It's about really trying to understand what our clients' needs are and figuring out how we engineer our service to deliver on that. We're a great law firm, I think, with lots of very, very experienced practitioners who are experts in their respective fields, right? And I used to think that was all that mattered, right? But it turns out that's table stakes, right? It's admission to get into the club. Like, you have to have that.
Right.
But the question is now, what else do you have, right? How can you help understand the strategic goals of your clients and then engineer the products and services that you deliver to meet those needs, right? Are you enhancing it with technology? Are you enhancing it with improved process? Are you dealing with artificial intelligence and machine learning and analytics to really drive value to your client? And I don't think of it as kind of a we get something or you get something proposition, right? It's not, I get an extra $50 an hour, or I give you an extra $50 an hour. That's not the game. That's not what we're interested in, right? The question is, how can we help you meet your long-term and near-term goals with respect to your law department and the matters that we're helping you on, in a way that drives a great amount of value for you. Yeah. And then after that, it's just a matter of equitably sharing in that value, which is a win-win proposition instead of a win-lose proposition. Yeah. And I see that with respect to the things we do with bar associations, the work we do with the University of Miami School of Law, and certainly the interactions that we're having with our clients, right? I'm not about, from the standpoint of the School of Law saying, what can you give us, right? This is a mutually beneficial arrangement. There is nothing that will replicate the interacting with these students for how it changes you professionally. These tools that people are now just experiencing, that generation grew up on this stuff. They understand it in a way that we don't. So mentoring opportunity is a two-way street, right? We call it reverse mentoring, but I'm explaining to you about the intricacies of the practice of law, and you're learning about, as an associate, as a summer associate, you're learning in an apprenticeship kind of relationship how to practice law the right way. But what I'm learning from you is how to communicate in ways that we've never communicated before. How do we replace that face-to-face interaction with the office, with something that's at least equivalent, or in this world, in fact, better, yeah. Right? And we're all accelerating into that new future together rapidly. And I would argue that you might need a Sherpa for this kind of an adventure.
Yeah.
And the University of Miami, as much as any law school across this country, and better than the vast majority of them, is churning out students with that understanding and with that skill set.
Yeah.
And the whole is always more than the sum of its parts, which is why I would encourage to add to your parts, one of these younger practitioners that have these advanced skill sets. I think it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
I'm way over the 20 minutes, and I apologize for
You're
that.
good.
But you could.
No, I think we could keep talking for another hour or so. I know you got stuff to do as well. But
well,
yeah, I think I think it's a great place to kind of end right there. Is that, this is definitely, with everything that's going on, I think a lot of the more seasoned practitioners maybe do feel a little bit of a little lost in some of this. And I think that to your point, that bringing on somebody, it's not just, oh, we're going to train you to be a great lawyer.
right.
It is, you are receiving a lot of benefit just from kind of being around them and learning how they've been communicating, because that's the way the world's going. So I think that's great. Yeah.
Absolutely. On the defense side, we get these outside counsel guidelines now with some of our clients that say, you got to justify why you're bringing a second lawyer to that deposition, why you're bringing a second lawyer to that hearing. What's the reason? And you can have it if you justify it. You put it in writing. But the second lawyer that we send in when it's appropriate is not just somebody who's sitting there carrying a briefcase or something like that, right? They're operating in court trial technology with us. They're, following a set of guidelines that we provided for addressing preservation of error issues, right? They're providing trial support in addition to doing all of the things that you would benefit by having a second lawyer for, right? Another set of eyes, somebody to bring something to your attention while you're focused on examining, a witness. We had a scenario, and this was before COVID-19, where my partner and I had a 4 witness evidentiary hearing. It was Dalbert. We were trying to exclude their experts. We had 7-hour depositions for these 4 witnesses. And we needed to highlight for a judge while they're on the stand in a courthouse that has 0 technology, right? How we demonstrate to them that these witnesses are not qualified to be giving the opinions that they were giving. And that when they appear on the stand, they're going to have a much better story than they had during their deposition. So with our technology team and the experience that we have with these tools, we brought in a 50-inch 4K monitor and a large tripod to stand it on, and we had it connected to trial software. And both of our lawyers, my partner and I, who were examining these witnesses, had all of the video queued up when they answered the question wrong. Every question, every answer was there. And it only took 6 or 8 times to say, what color was the light? And they go, the light was red. And they said, oh, it's funny because you sat back in my office in June, we swore you in, and here's what you said, line 6, whatever. And they go, the light is green. And, it only took several times doing that for all the witnesses to be like, you know what? We're just gonna say what we said before, because it's going to be a lot less painful.
That's awesome.
But the reaction that the judge had, because she hadn't been exposed to this kind of technology before either, was, she was, thought it was really cool, and she was asking us all kinds of questions about it. And I know, because I'm involved with the bar and things like that, that courthouse was actually in line for an upgrade, and it was going to have some of the kinds of technology that we're talking about, 6 months, 8 months down the road. But it's the same with respect to these online hearings, right? We frequently have a paralegal or a technician or a second lawyer experience with the case there to help with the operation, if it's a half-hour hearing or something like that, of the screen share and the exhibit work and stuff like that, so that the lawyer who's making the argument can focus on making the argument. It's so much easier to say, hey, I want to show you the allegations on page 6 of the complaint, and then you have to dig through and find it, right? Yeah. You say page 6 of the complaint, a few keystrokes go in, and page 6 ends up on the screen, right? That's what we want. And we have a number of people who are skilled at doing that, and we are rapidly training almost all of our litigators to have that kind of experience. And the response has been incredible. We have 8 lawyers now who are certified online notaries. You know, they went through the, you know, it's 5 or 6 hours of online training, but our real estate team and others, you know, they just need to have ready access to a notary, and it's not one of those things where everybody can be there in the same room. So, you know, they just went and got the training. You know, that never would have occurred to me, but it's been so handy for them. Technology with regard to electronic signatures and being able to verify that the person on the other end of the transaction is actually the person that they say they are. You know, how do you execute a will with witnesses and things like that? Because we're all sort of sensing our mortality. Like, these are all things that we are addressing now in ways that we never have before. Anyway, my advice to you is just, on all the places where I'm not charming and interesting, just edit it out and you'll get down there.
No, it was good. That was awesome, man. That was awesome. And like I said, you know, I think where we kind of hit it off is talking tech and talking about, you know, changing and innovation and how, you know, the law is changing. And this has presented a lot of great opportunities, you know, shine light on some holes on things that we can change. And I think all in all, for the future, in the future, this is all good things. I will put a pin on it because I know we could keep going, but Jason, I appreciate it. Thank you again for your time, man. You know, I know we'll send me the links. We'll put everything so people can check that out. And
cool.
and yeah, we'll have to have you on again because I'm sure there's a lot more we could talk about.
Okay. No problem. And if you're interested in connecting with me, you can find my bio at carltonfields.com. Or just connect with me on LinkedIn. It's at Jason Kairalla. You know, good luck spelling it, but it's probably right down there in the corner of the screen.
No, I Googled it. You Google Jason Kairalla, you're famous. You come up, Jason Kairalla, Carlton Fields. So.
Yeah, it turns out there's a whole bunch of Kairallas down in Brazil. You know, I don't know them very well, but now I'm friends with them on social media and things like that. And there's one guy who's like an international jet skiing champion. And his name is Jayo, I think, Kairalla. And in the beginning of Google Images, if you searched Kairalla, the only thing that will come up is this bronze god, like, you know, muscular and whatnot, standing on a trophy pedestal, right, with a big trophy in his arms, and, you know, models, you know, on either side of him. And so he may be a Kairalla living a better version of life than I am, but
nice.
But yeah, no, the way technology and social media is ever expanding is crazy. But I'm interested in continuing this conversation online, so please reach out and let's collaborate together. Let's do something together. And if you have any questions about any of the technologies that we discussed, just please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help whomever. I think a rising tide raises all boats, and that's the way I've always felt.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks very much for the time.
Bye.